while ago, I commented on a video which was talking about the, the best way to go out of body and all this other stuff, and they were talking about out of body experiences. And I kind of made the comment that, okay, this is kind of wrong, because what they were talking about, the title was astral projection, but what they were talking about was out of body experiences. And
right.
And I even had somebody in the comments thread that was arguing with me, insisting that lucid dreaming was the same thing as these other two phenomena. And I'm like, no,
it's not.
And I've been trying to figure out in part who the hell is promoting this.
Astral projection is a phenomenon that is becoming rapidly more popular in the last 20 years, and even more so in the last 5. It is a process by which the human consciousness temporarily leaves the physical body and functions independently, while the physical body remains still and passive throughout. This happens randomly while asleep, becoming conscious in the middle of a dream. This is a very common experience, which is also known as lucid dreaming or out-of-body experience.
No. That boy needs to pay attention.
Dreams in which you know that you are dreaming are scientifically referred to as lucid dreams.
So let's start with lucid dreaming, which is an actual thing.
Now, scientists were initially quite skeptical about this phenomenon of lucid dreams. They said, well, this is impossible. By definition, dreams lack this reflective awareness, right? Therefore, they are dreams. So this cannot be possible. Others said, well, perhaps the lucid dream is just an ordinary dream in which we merely dream about being lucid, which is something different, right? Others said, well, and still say today actually, well, ordinary REM sleep just cannot allow for lucidity, so the lucid dream must be some kind of a hybrid state of consciousness in which one part of the brain is awake while the other part is dreaming. Or some brief awakening from sleep in which our mind still lingers a bit in REM sleep, and through that we could know that we are dreaming. Now, in the early 1980s, a sleep researcher called Stephen LaBerge, at that time working at Stanford University, conducted this ingenious experiment to scientifically verify the existence of lucid dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You recognize that you're in a dream and therefore can take control.
Yeah.
And that is the defining attribute. You recognize you are dreaming.
Now, the emerging science of lucid dreaming has now generated evidence to suggest just that lucid dreaming can be used as an incredibly valuable tool to enhance psychological development, and is now invested into various research areas like nightmare treatment, mental rehearsal, creative problem solving.
Yeah, but the whole point is, and the defining point is, that you recognize it is a dream and you take control of the environment and the content of the dream.
Well, you have potential to take control.
Or the potential to, yes.
Yeah. I would say lucid dreaming is after that fact if you do accept control. But it's that defining point of knowing you're dreaming.
Let's move to the next one on my list, which would be remote viewing.
You see your friend eating cookies at his computer. He's wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt.
Because prior to going to out-of-body experience, I think we need to see if we can differentiate between the two.
But in fact, for some years now, the U.S. intelligence community has wagered a modest amount of money on the possibility that such powers do exist.
When I used to profess to being psychic, remote viewing was one of my things. And it's a projection of self, technically, out into wherever you want to take a look at, whether it be a person, a place, a thing. You make everything about what you want to travel to, and then just kind of throw it out, and it comes back to, at least in my experiences, like Vision Quest.
Congress has asked the CIA to review the 20-year, $20 million program to see what we got out of it.
ABC News has obtained a copy of that report, which is critical of psychic spying, saying that, quote, continued use in intelligence gathering operations is not warranted.
You get a sort of an idea of what was there in this realm, I guess is what you would call it.
To clarify, like,
Go for it.
It's not like seeing the future or something. It's looking at the present and what's going on somewhere when you're not.
ABC News was told that psychic spying has been used in about 500 cases. Of those, fewer than a dozen were claimed to be right on target. In the remaining cases, Even the proponents admit the inaccurate information far outweighed the good.
I would say the distinction between these two phenomena, one is you are projecting the essence of yourself out, and the other is defined by projecting into what's going on inside your head.
Between the difference between remote viewing and lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would agree.
We've covered a little bit with the notion of remote viewing, which is basically the theory behind it is that you're throwing your consciousness somewhere else. We've covered lucid dreaming, which is just taking control of the dream. But then we move on to, let's go with out-of-body experience for a moment. Experientially, it's different because in one of them, in the remote viewing, typically the person doesn't have, so to speak, an avatar. We'll just refer to it as, to use the modern reference, of one's own self, in which you have this basically construct of the self present, and the other instance in which it's just the notion of pure consciousness as opposed to necessarily feeling like you're physically there.
Welcome to the world of astral projection.
Wait. Hang on. Don't play that clip yet. Yeah, we're not talking astral projection. We're still talking things like out-of-body experience and stuff.
Yeah, well, so is he, technically.
It is a process by which the human consciousness temporarily leaves the physical body and functions independently, while the physical body remains still and passive throughout.
Well, as long as he's not talking about going to the astral realm, I guess it still counts.
Well, based upon what he said, he's never actually gone astral. He's never left this world.
I've only had 4 or 5 out-of-body experiences personally, but in all of them, I just ended up flying around. One time, I even flew through space. If you're gonna astral project, you'll probably just want to fly all the time.
Well, shit. No wonder he doesn't know the difference.
The notion of astral travel and what have you is linked with out-of-body experiences. The notion is your spirit goes out of your body, but once you start traveling to other worlds, that's usually where the distinction of astral projection comes into play.
Out-of-body leads to potential astral projection.
I would say that the distinctions are very nuanced, yes.
I would say out-of-body is kind of the middle ground between the remote viewing and the astral projection.
Yeah.
Out-of-body is, did you ask for it? Generally not.
And I would speak from personal experience on that one. Because, when I had an out-of-body, air quote, experience, it was unexpected. It wasn't directed. And, it did. It fucking confused the hell out of me for a while.
The group of you have all pretty much had some kind of outer body experience, which is just a phenomena that people have. It's an experiential thing.
We know that people can have out-of-body experiences. I mean, I've had out-of-body experiences.
You basically covered most of what I would have said. It's basically just a disconnect of, it more or less, regardless of whether it's spiritual or not, it's a disconnect of your consciousness.
But what in the brain generates the sensation that this is actually my movement?
You look down and find that your physical body is sleeping peacefully on the bed.
They're the energetic concept you have of you in this life.
Look in particular at the left arm of the blue subject. But what is done here, that the experimenter puts a conflict. Because normally when we're looking at our hand, when I touch it right now, the touch cue and the visual cue is on the same position in space. But what is done here is a simple trick. The subject even knows what is done to him. You make an error. What is your body? What is not your body?
Cognitively, our features don't match our expectations of oneself because we're used to seeing each other only in reflection. Now, when you were, so to speak, looking down at yourself, did you see yourself as you would in a mirror, or did your features look wrong?
There are certain differences because it's the concept you have of your physical reality, not the way that the physical reality actually is.
We're talking about one's perception of self as perceived, whether it matches, potential reality, or if it's more, whether it be in terms of the self-visualization as you're used to seeing in a mirror, or something that's clearly not actually you.
Mainly from inside my own avatar, so absolutely no information on any mirror reversal or anything. It's literally from first-person perspective.
I'll just say for me, I only saw my feet as I re-entered my body.
Fair.
I was already on the move. I was wanting to be as far away from me as possible.
Yeah, so for me it's been first person or no sense of avatar.
Okay.
I would say it was like I was looking at myself in a mirror.
It was like I was staring at a doppelganger. It was very vivid.
Because one of my hypotheses was that you'd basically be seeing yourself as if it was a reflection as opposed to the actuality.
It was a blown hypothesis, actually. As we discovered during the long form of the talk, which unfortunately is only available to patrons right now, it varied on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one. I'll have to think on that one for a little bit, and I might have to go with a slightly different construct of what my expect is pertaining to this.
Can I just add one thing?
Go for it.
If you do happen to have an out-of-body experience, don't get freaked out, because every single time, the last 3 big ones I've ever had, I've always gotten startled and probably didn't go as far as I could have.
That happens to me a lot, because the way I get to those experiences is through lucid dreaming and then sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis is kind of like my bridge. Once I'm at that point, I can will myself an out-of-body experience, but like, if I do the sleep paralysis on purpose, then I can get to the out-of-body experience, and I can get pretty far. But like if my sleep paralysis is an accident, then I panic, and then I never get to the point that I want to get to.
Yeah, most people that I've spoken to about lucid dreaming and this topic generally, with possibly 1 or 2 exceptions, the main consensus of opinion is the shock of realizing that I've realized I'm dreaming is enough to snap them out of it.
There is this entire entity that seems to be directed against the world. It's not about hands being part of this entity or not. It's me here looking at you and you over there looking at me. So how can we study this? And what we've done in the lab over the last 6-7 years is to develop methods using virtual reality and also robotics to map and to measure what is this a full body representation. Because what we have found is that what can be observed for the rubber hand illusion can also be induced in something we initially wanted to call a rubber body illusion, but after checking the web and the internet for a little while, we decided to go for another type of name for that illusion, calling it the FBI or the full body illusion. But what we induce, again, I'll be brief, is that we can induce similar states.
You are neurologically disconnecting yourself from control of your body. You are all cerebral and then just the basic autonomics, which is a separate area of the brain. So that physical whatever ties in most likely to sleep paralysis and this perception of flying spirit.
The brain puts their selfhood into that avatar's body. Now, what is interesting, or what interests me in particular here as a medical doctor by training, is that there's also changes. Now, if you induce those illusions, this comes with consequences for how your brain represents your body.
The same goes for dreams, which is essentially uncontrolled and often unconscious out-of-body experience.
Whoa, you think we're gonna let that shit sneak by? I see what you did there, bitch. Yeah, not getting away with that crap here.
Sorry, okay.
Well, I know she thought she was talking about out-of-body experience, but what was she actually talking about, boss? Huh?
This might not be a phenomenon that folks are familiar with this or not. You heard of dream walking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
What,
a lot of native close by, yes.
Now, what you described is actually closer to dream walking than your standard out-of-body experience or lucid dreaming or what have you.
Yeah.
And dream walking is the notion that you're effectively able to go out of your head, for all intents and purposes, connect with another person, and, so to speak, follow that proverbial connection between you to them. This, of course, ties into the notion of things like collective consciousness.
It was wild, yeah.
But you're effectively following a thread, so to speak, the proverbial threads that would be connecting everyone together to this one specific person for one reason or another, and what that is, only your psyche would know.
Huh, interesting.
But you'd be effectively either stepping into one of their dreams or in some cases going to where they are if they're not in a proper dream state.
In fact, we all experience this out-of-body state every night when we sleep. Most of these projections are unconscious because we are not trained to remember them.
Hey, I don't think they know the difference between dreams and reality.
Physical objects have absolutely no attributes separate of the observer, which in his observation is creating their form. Thought and focus of thought is not only what's creating these different dimensions, it's also your vehicle of travel through the different dimensions. All dimensions are thought responsive.
Nope, not a clue. What about spirit shit?
Dreaming! What are dreams? Well, when you're asleep, you are out of body. Your physical body needs rest, but your consciousness, your spirit, does not. So your consciousness returns to higher levels of being for the night.
Whoa, dude. How fucking high are you? Damn.
How about some science, bitches?
We've also looked at the brain changes again that occur when this illusion occurred. Please play the next two videos, please. And we have seen one region, in particular in the right temporoparietal cortex, about 2 centimeters above and to the right above your ear. This is shown here in red. And this region basically monitors, under our experimental conditions that I've just presented to you, whether you feel selfhood, self-localized at the position of the avatar or at your body. So what we're basically controlling is inside or outside body experiences, if you want. So it's very easy to trick lifelong experience into induced states and where actually you do errors. You do not know, as a subject of experience, where actually the subject is localized. And for me, this was very interesting to see, because if you apply an electrical stimulation to the brain of a person at the area that is indicated in blue, you have an out-of-body experiences.
It's woo time.
Okay, all kinds of factors influence your ability to have an out-of-body experience. What you want to really focus on is keeping your mind away from the body. You will feel yourself most likely floating or some sort of movement, and it takes some time for you to train yourself to not panic when you feel that movement, because the movement can be extremely intense sometimes.
The real secret. Brain damage.
Much of this research that I've talked to you about was actually started based on clinical observations where damage or interference to this blue region, which is very close to this avatar encoding region, has consequences. There, an out-of-body experience in this case, the subject feels, like is shown on the picture, to be under the ceiling, to be looking down, so the self is under the ceiling looking down, while actually the real physical body is still positioned below.
Is to say that, some of the stuff there might be something to. But the problem is trying to separate what may or may not be a phenomena from what clearly isn't. Yeah. Now, in terms of what we've discussed, lucid dreaming, it's a thing. We know that. Out-of-body experience, people experience it. It's a thing. Then you get to things like remote viewing. The accuracy on people that are trying to do this remote viewing is normally very, very low. Especially when tested, it's usually found to be very inaccurate. So more than likely what you're doing is effectively in a quasi-dream state or meditative state, stepping into an environment in which you have expectations of what will be there.
So your concept of the physical reality of the blanket and the physical reality may be a different color than it is in the fourth and fifth dimension. So you'll notice subtle differences. It's just because what you're experiencing, even the experience of your body in the fourth dimension, is your concept of your body.
Mm-hmm. Thus, the reliability is not there. This is predominantly a construct of the mind. Now, astral travel is something completely different, and we'll touch on that in a few moments.
You pass through thought form, which would be the fourth and fifth dimensions, right outside the physical dimension.
The dimension I'd like to talk about in specific is the fourth dimension, which is also generally referred to as the astral realm.
Now, classically speaking, the difference between things like out-of-body experience and astral projection is the notion of the destination. In astral projection, you're supposed to be going astral, or going to other realities. Of course, this is not the way spirit science differentiates.
So what's the difference between lucid dreaming and astral projection? Well, lucid dreaming is becoming conscious while asleep, already out of body. Astral projection is consciously leaving the body, going straight from a waking state to an out-of-body state. And that's it. Okay,
I think we've pretty well established that there is a difference between out-of-body experiences and things like remote viewing, and I've introduced the notion of dream walking, which is not something that most of these guys are even talking about or giving any thought to, because that's apparently not part of their paradigm. in terms of the books that they read, because they seem to get everything out of, books that somebody's written about this kind of stuff. We've, of course, discussed lucid dreaming, which is a thing, as is out-of-body experience is a thing. But what is it? And we can't necessarily quantify any of these things. They're kind of in that unknown box, which I'm comfortable with them being there. The problem is we have people that are ascribing a lot of other dogmas to them.
You notice that there's a glowing, pulsating, bluish-white cord connected to your physical body.
You may, when you are in the exploration phase, see this thing which we have called the silver cord. It's like a glittery light spiderweb or filament that is your mind perceiving the connection between your physical body and your thought form body.
Because you are now unchained from your physical shell.
I think it's quite beautiful. It's a lot like seeing an umbilical cord for the first time. You're kind of unprepared for how beautiful the colors and textures and translucence of it is.
Clearly, we're dealing with a woman that's never actually seen a fucking umbilical cord. Ugh.
But in terms of those that have had some kind of outer body experience, I'm going to do a little bit of a dogma check here. While you were experiencing this, at any point did you notice some kind of cord connecting your floaty self, so to speak, to your body self?
Everyone who has ever consciously astral projected will see this cord.
Absolutely.
The only thing that I can relate that question to would be my sense of self. And my sense of self remained intact throughout.
But you didn't perceive some kind of physical connection between you and... Okay.
No, I expected to from everything that I was hearing and reading at the time, but no, I never had that experience.
Yeah, I mean, no. Well, apart from maybe the non-abatorial experiences, that would have been a disconnect, but even then my sense of self was intact.
Yeah.
You would have had a feeling of a cord coming from your solar plexus is what he's talking about. Like
no, nothing like that.
Yeah.
When I had mine, I didn't see it because I only looked up, and when I realized I was close to my ceiling, I closed my eyes and was not able to reopen. But the physical sensation, there was a tug at my belly button.
I would like to revise my answer because I am now. There was one time when I got a sense of I'm too far away, and that snapped me back, and I woke up immediately.
The silver cord that I mentioned earlier, by the way, is the cord that tethers your physical body to your spirit. It connects when your soul connects to the physical body, and when you are astral projecting, it tethers your spirit to your body, and you can see it, but you can't break it. The cord only breaks when you die.
But you were sensing that you were too far away at that point already, right?
No, that's the only way I can articulate it. It was a sense of insurmountable distance. If I went any further, there would be no turning back.
A sense of a negative.
Yeah. Jordy, anything?
I like based on like my point of view, I didn't see one, but there's not saying that there wasn't one there.
Now, in my particular case, I'm following the shamanic path. So now I know the New Agers are trying to refer to it as guide or whatever. Fuck them. My spirit animal is a wolf. But going through this whole thing, though, the notion in terms of being the child of the wolf, so to speak, which was one of the many terms that I've heard referencing it, is that what you have to watch out for is your tail, instead of this notion of having essentially the umbilicus connecting the body to the self, because you're accepting to some degree the animalistic nature of oneself. You have what's referred to as a tail, and you have this big fluffy tail that seems that if you follow it far enough, and you can only see it immediately where you are, but if you sit there and pay enough attention following it back, you can follow it all the back to where you came from. And the reason why you have to keep track of your tail is so you don't get lost.
It can stretch to infinity and will make sure that no matter how far you go, you can always return to your body.
Now, I'm okay with, there are certain things that we don't know what the heck it is, but these aren't even the things they're claiming.
So the silver cord is really what your mind is assigning an image to in terms of your connection between the subtle etheric body and your physical body. You'll see it quite often. You'll see it even when you experience other people in the fourth dimension.
The problem of sorts I run into with the woo hucksters, though, is that they go into these things with all these preconceived notions, and those preconceived notions seem to dictate their experience.
Hey, meat sack. So, I got a question for you. After years of doing this astral projection crap, now that you've spent some time away and have done some research, what do you think it is?
Most of this is actually, I think, an expression of the dream state more so than anything else, quite frankly.
On this particular set of topics, we've only scratched the surface. I hope that this video can act as a little bit of a primer so that people understand what in the hell we're talking about to some degree. Although I'm sure I'm going to have to get into the nuts and bolts of it a little bit more as we go on further in the series. It is complicated, and a lot of the stuff is crap that back when I was into the whole shaman thing, I never really spent the time to look at it in a real contemplative, retrospective, well, skeptical way. And over the course of this, I'm going to have to do that and face some most likely uncomfortable truths. So I hope you'll enjoy the journey with me. Next time, more fun, more clips, and a lot less serious. And of course, I'll give the puppets more of a role. See you next time.